I never thought money would become both my shield and my curse. For years, I silently paid for everything my family owned while they treated me like a failure. My brother Jake enjoyed their admiration while I just wanted acknowledgement. Every Thanksgiving, I hoped things would be different. This year, when Jake raised his glass to toast everyone except me, something inside me finally snapped. I decided it was time they learned exactly who had been keeping their lives afloat. Let me know where you are watching from, and if this resonates with you, hit that like and subscribe button as I reveal how I finally stood up for myself. Success never came easy in my family. Growing up in a middle-class neighborhood in Columbus, Ohio, I always felt like I was living in the shadow of my older brother Jake. Our parents made it clear from early on that Jake was the golden child. He was the star quarterback homecoming king, and charming in ways I could never be. Meanwhile, I was the quiet, studious one who preferred books over footballs. My parents would drive across town to attend Jake's football games, cheering loudly from the stands. But when it came to my academic competitions or debate tournaments, there was always some reason they could not make it, Dad would say. Those things are not real achievements like sports, Keegan. This dynamic did not change as we grew older. Jake got a business degree from the local state college, barely passing his classes but becoming president of his fraternity. I worked multiple jobs to put myself through an Ivy League school, graduating with honors in computer science. Despite the lack of support, or perhaps because of it, I became determined to prove my worth. While Jake was partying his way through college, I was coding until 3 in the morning, developing apps and building connections in the tech industry. By 23, I landed a job at a promising startup in San Francisco. Jake remained the charismatic center of attention. He married his college sweetheart. Susan had 3 beautiful children and took a sales position at a local car dealership. From the outside, he seemed to have the perfect American life. But beneath the surface, his spending habits were creating serious financial problems. He bought a house he could not afford, leased luxury cars, and took expensive vacations on credit. My parents never saw these red flags. When Jake would show up with a new car, Dad would beam with pride, saying, "My boy knows how to live." When I mentioned my promotion or stock options, Mom would change the subject to ask about Jake's kids. 3 years into my career, the startup I joined went public, and my stock options suddenly made me wealthy. Around the same time, Dad had a heart attack. The hospital bills exceeded their insurance coverage by $40,000. Without telling anyone, I paid those bills. It was the first time I stepped in financially, but it would not be the last. 6 months later, I learned that my parents were 3 months behind on their mortgage payments. The bank was threatening foreclosure. Again, I stepped in, this time buying their house outright and allowing them to live there rent-free. I told them it was an investment property, and they believed me. As Jake's financial situation deteriorated, I began covering expenses for his family too. When he complained about the cost of private school for his kids, I anonymously arranged to pay their tuition. When his car was about to be repossessed, I created a story about winning a settlement from a class action lawsuit so I could give him the money without hurting his pride. Over the next 5 years, my financial support for my family grew. I paid for Mom's craft room renovation, Dad's fishing boat, and the family vacation home at Lake Erie that everyone used but no one could actually afford. All the while, I kept these contributions secret, hoping that someday they would recognize my value beyond my bank account. Every year we gathered for Thanksgiving at my parents' house. Every year I hoped for acceptance. Every year I left disappointed. But this year was different. I had recently purchased a beautiful home outside Columbus and offered to host the celebration. After much convincing, my family agreed. My girlfriend Amanda was concerned. She had witnessed how they treated me and questioned why I continued to seek their approval. "They take advantage of you, Keegan," she said as we prepared the house for their arrival. "They do not even know how much you do for them." "They are still my family," I replied, arranging fresh flowers in the dining room. "Maybe if they see what I have built for myself, things will be different." Amanda squeezed my hand. "I hope so, but please remember, your worth does not depend on their recognition." I nodded, but deep down I still craved their approval. I had spent weeks preparing for this day, ordering a heritage turkey, decorating the house with tasteful fall arrangements, and even finding old family photos to display. I wanted everything to be perfect. I wanted them to be proud. The disappointment began as soon as they arrived 3 hours late with no apology. Jake swaggered into my home immediately, commenting on everything. "Wow, look at this place. Must be nice to have so much money you can just buy whatever you want." My father laughed, adding, "Your brother has always known how to spend money. Not sure he knows how to earn it, though." They all chuckled as if it were a harmless joke, ignoring the fact that I had built my fortune through years of 80-hour work weeks and smart investments. Mom barely glanced at the carefully prepared appetizers before asking if I had any chips and dip. Susan, Jake's wife, at least had the decency to compliment the house and thank me for hosting. Their kids immediately asked for the Wi-Fi password and disappeared into their phones. Throughout the afternoon, small incidents kept adding up. Jake criticized my wine selection despite knowing nothing about wine. Dad complained that the television in the living room was too complicated. Mom wondered aloud why I did not have more traditional decorations. Every comment felt like a tiny needle pricking my skin. Amanda noticed my growing tension. During a quiet moment in the kitchen, she wrapped her arms around me from behind. "You are doing great," she whispered. "The food looks amazing." I forced a smile. "Thanks. I just want them to have a good time." "They are," she assured me. "They just have an odd way of showing it." I tried to maintain a positive attitude, but it became increasingly difficult as Jake's hostile behavior escalated. During dinner preparations, he cornered me in the pantry, his breath smelling of the expensive whiskey I had put out. "So little brother business must be booming for you to afford all this," he said, gesturing vaguely around him. Meanwhile, the rest of us are struggling in the real world. I kept my voice even. "The tech industry has been good to me, but it took a lot of hard work to get here." Jake scoffed. "Right. Sitting at a computer all day. Try dealing with real customers like I do. Try raising 3 kids in this economy." What Jake did not know or chose to ignore was that I was well aware of his financial troubles. Just last month, he had called asking for a loan to cover his mortgage, claiming it was a temporary setback. It was the fourth temporary loan this year. As dinner progressed, Jake's comments became more pointed. He described my career as playing with computers and suggested my success was just luck. When I mentioned a recent project my team had completed, he interrupted to tell a story about his high school football glory days. Susan, Jake's wife, looked increasingly uncomfortable with her husband's behavior. At one point, she touched his arm and whispered something in his ear, which he brushed off with a laugh. Their oldest son, Tyler, kept glancing between us, clearly sensing the tension. My parents remained oblivious or perhaps willfully blind. They laughed at Jake's jokes at my expense and steered the conversation toward his achievements whenever possible. When I mentioned potentially opening a tech education center in our hometown, Mom quickly changed the subject to Jake's recent promotion to assistant sales manager. By the time we finished the main course, the tension in the room was palpable. Amanda squeezed my knee under the table, a silent show of support that I desperately needed. I suggested we move to the living room for drinks before dessert, hoping a change of scenery might improve the atmosphere. As we settled into the plush sofas of my living room, each with a glass of the 30-year-old scotch I had splurged on for the occasion, I decided to make one last attempt at family harmony. I raised my glass, preparing to toast to family and gratitude appropriate for the Thanksgiving holiday. Before I could speak, Jake lifted his glass higher. With a smirk that I had grown to dread since childhood, he loudly proclaimed, "Here is to family except for Keegan, the failure who thinks money makes him worth something." The room fell silent. My mother's nervous laugh broke the silence, followed by my father's deeper chuckle. They were laughing, actually laughing at Jake's joke that had so clearly been meant to hurt me. In that moment, something shifted inside me. Years of suppressed frustration crystallized into a single clear thought. I deserved better than this. The glass in my hand felt suddenly heavy, the amber liquid catching the light as I considered my response. Time seemed to slow down as I raised my glass. A strange calm washed over me, replacing the hurt with clarity. I looked directly at Jake, making sure to catch his eye before I spoke. "To the failure who just stopped paying for everything you own," I said, my voice steady and clear. The room went completely silent. Jake's smirk froze, then slowly faded. My father stopped mid-chuckle his glass halfway to his lips. My mother's smile disappeared as she looked between Jake and me, confusion replacing her amusement. "What are you talking about?" Jake finally asked, trying to maintain his condescending tone, but failing to hide the uncertainty creeping in. I took a slow sip of my scotch, savoring both the rich flavor and the moment of truth that had been years in coming. I am talking about the fact that I have been financially supporting this entire family for the past 5 years without any of you knowing or appreciating it. That is ridiculous, my father scoffed, but there was fear behind his eyes. We pay our own way. Do you? I asked calmly. Let me break it down for you. That house you live in, I bought it 3 years ago when you were about to lose it to foreclosure. I let you believe you were still making payments, but those checks you write every month go into an account I set up for your retirement. My mother gasped. That cannot be true. The lake house, where we spent last summer, that is in my name too. I purchased it when the previous owners foreclosed. The boat you love so much Dad paid for with my money, not the non-existent insurance payout you think you received. I turned to Jake, whose face had drained of all color. Those private schools your kids attend, I pay the tuition directly to the school every semester. That car loan you think you got from Columbus Credit Union, that was me too. There is no loan, Jake. I paid for your car outright after your credit score tanked. You are lying, Jake whispered, but his voice lacked conviction. The craft room renovation, Mom's hip replacement, that insurance would not cover the family vacation to Florida last spring, Jake's gambling debt that he told you was a business investment gone wrong. All me. I set my glass down carefully on the coffee table. I have receipts for everything if you would like to see them. Amanda reached over and squeezed my hand, her eyes conveying both support and concern. Susan, Jake's wife, covered her mouth with her hand, tears forming in her eyes as the pieces fell into place. Why would you do all that? My father asked, his voice small and uncertain. Because you are my family, and I love you, I said simply. I wanted to help, and I could afford to. But what I cannot afford anymore is to be treated like a failure while bankrolling your lives. Jake stood up suddenly, his face contorted with a mix of shame and anger. You did this to make us look bad, to make yourself feel superior. Nobody asked you to pay for anything. No, you just took, and took without question, I replied. Did you never wonder how you qualified for that car loan with your credit score? Or how the kids' private school accepted late payments without consequences? Did none of you ever question why your financial problems kept magically resolving themselves? My mother started to cry, the reality of the situation finally sinking in. My father stared into his glass, unable to meet my eyes. Jake's children looked confused except for Tyler, who was old enough to understand what was happening and looked mortified. So what now? Susan asked quietly. Are you cutting us off to punish us? No, I said firmly. I am establishing boundaries. I will continue to pay for the kids' education because they should not suffer for adult issues. But the rest, the constant bailouts and secret payments, that stops today. If you want my financial help in the future, you will need to ask directly, acknowledge where it is coming from, and show some gratitude. You cannot just pull the rug out from under us. Jake sputtered, panic replacing his earlier bravado. I am not, I explained. I will give you all time to adjust. 3 months to figure out your finances, create budgets, maybe get second jobs if necessary. I will help with the transition, but no more blank checks. This is cruel, Keegan, my mother said through tears. Amanda, who had remained silent until now, finally spoke up. What is cruel is how you have all treated him despite his generosity. Do you know how hard he worked to be able to help you? How many 60-hour weeks he put in? He has been nothing but kind, and you have repaid him with contempt. Susan surprised everyone by nodding. She is right. We have not been fair to you, Keegan. I had no idea about any of this. Jake told me his parents were helping with the school tuition. Jake shot his wife a betrayed look but said nothing. I think we need some time to process all this, my father finally said, standing up slowly as if his body had suddenly aged 10 years. Perhaps we should go. I nodded, feeling a complex mix of emotions. Part of me wanted to take it all back, to restore the comfortable illusion we had been living under. But a stronger part knew this confrontation had been necessary. Take whatever time you need, I said. But know that I am still here. I still care about all of you. I just cannot continue like this. One by one, they gathered their things. Susan hugged me tightly before they left, whispering, "I am so sorry. We will talk soon." My parents could barely look at me, shuffling out with mumbled goodbyes. Jake left without a word, his posture rigid with humiliation and anger. As the door closed behind them, I felt the weight of years lifting from my shoulders, replaced by a new kind of heaviness. The truth had been spoken, but the path forward remained uncertain. The house felt eerily quiet after everyone left. Amanda and I moved silently through the rooms, clearing plates and glasses from a celebration that had turned into a confrontation. The perfectly brined turkey sat mostly uneaten, the carefully selected wines barely touched. Hours of preparation for a dinner that ended in family upheaval. "Are you okay?" Amanda finally asked as we loaded the dishwasher. I paused, considering the question. I honestly do not know. Part of me feels terrible, like I just blew up my entire family. Another part feels relieved, like I can finally breathe. She nodded, understanding. It needed to happen, Keegan. This was not sustainable. The drive home from my parents' house felt longer than usual, despite the fact we were already home and they had left. It was as if I was mentally traveling away from the family dynamic I had known all my life. Amanda and I talked late into the night, processing what had happened and what might come next. "Do you think they will ever forgive me?" I asked as we finally prepared for bed. "The question is whether you can forgive them," she replied, her voice gentle but firm, "and whether any relationship moving forward will be healthier than what you had before." The weeks following Thanksgiving were surprisingly quiet. No angry calls from Jake, no tearful voicemails from my mother, no stern lectures from my father. Just silence. At first, this silence was unnerving, but gradually I came to appreciate the space it gave me to reflect. I threw myself into work, finding solace in the straightforward problems of code and algorithms. During this period, I also began seeing a therapist, something I had considered for years but never prioritized. Dr. Miller helped me explore the family dynamics that had shaped me and understand why I had allowed myself to be taken advantage of for so long. "You were buying their love," she suggested during one session. "But real love cannot be purchased." Those words hit me hard. Had I been trying to buy their approval all this time? The thought was uncomfortable, but rang true. I had been using my financial success as a substitute for the emotional connection I craved. Amanda proved to be my strongest support during this time. She celebrated small victories with me, like when I declined to anonymously pay for Jake's property tax bill that came due in December. "Setting boundaries is not selfish," she reminded me. "It is necessary for healthy relationships." I also reconnected with friends I had neglected while focusing so much energy on my family. My college roommate Troy visited for a weekend, and we stayed up late talking about our startup days. My colleague Marissa invited us to her holiday party, where I found myself enjoying conversations without the constant undercurrent of familial tension. Slowly, a sense of peace began to replace the guilt and anxiety that had initially followed the confrontation. I realized that my worth was not tied to what I could provide financially, nor was it determined by my family's approval. This revelation was both liberating and terrifying. 4 weeks after Thanksgiving, my mother called. Her voice was hesitant, lacking the casual entitlement I had grown accustomed to. "We need to talk," she said simply. "All of us." We arranged to meet at a neutral location, a private room at a local restaurant. As I parked my car, I felt a flutter of anxiety, but reminded myself that I had done nothing wrong by telling the truth and setting boundaries. My parents arrived first, looking older and more subdued than I remembered. My father, usually quick with an opinion or judgment, seemed uncertain. My mother had clearly been crying. Jake and Susan arrived next, with Jake avoiding eye contact, while Susan offered a small, encouraging smile. "Thank you for coming," I began once we were all seated. "I know our last gathering did not end well." "That is an understatement," Jake muttered, but Susan placed a restraining hand on his arm. My father cleared his throat. "Your mother and I have been doing a lot of thinking and talking and looking at our financial records." He paused, clearly struggling. "We had no idea how much you had been doing for us. No idea. We feel terrible," my mother added, her voice breaking. "Not just about the money, but about how we have treated you. We always saw you as so capable, so independent, that we never thought you needed our support or approval." "But everyone needs that," I said quietly, "especially from their family." Jake stared at the table, his jaw working. Finally, he looked up. "I have been an ass," he admitted bluntly. "I was jealous of your success and too proud to admit my failures. It was easier to tear you down than to face my own shortcomings." Susan nodded. "We have had some hard conversations these past weeks. About money, about family, about respect. We want to do better," my father said. "We want to earn back your trust, not just take advantage of your generosity." I felt a cautious hope rising. That means a lot to me, but things cannot go back to the way they were. "We know," my mother assured me. "We have made some changes already. Your father and I are taking financial management classes. We have created a budget for the first time in our marriage. And I have taken a second job," Jake added the admission, clearly costing him some pride. "Weekend work at the warehouse. It is not glamorous, but it helps pay the bills that I should have been covering all along." Susan smiled at her husband, pride evident in her expression. "He has been amazing. The kids are seeing a different side of their father, one that takes responsibility." We talked for hours, laying bare years of assumptions, resentments, and miscommunications. There were tears from all of us, and moments of defensive anger that gradually gave way to understanding. It was not a magical fix, but it was a beginning. In the months that followed, our family dynamic shifted slowly but noticeably. My financial support became selective and acknowledged, not a secret crutch, but an occasional gift given and received with transparency. My parents began expressing genuine interest in my work and life, asking questions about projects and listening to the answers. Jake and I established a cautious friendship based on mutual respect rather than competition. The next family gathering, a small celebration for my birthday in February, felt different. There was an awareness in the room, a new carefulness in how we treated each other. Not perfect, but infinitely better than before. As I reflected on the journey of the past few months, I realized that money had never been the real issue. It had been about recognition, respect, and reciprocity. By confronting the financial imbalance, we had been forced to address the emotional one as well. The greatest lesson I learned was that true family relationships must be mutual. Giving without limits or expectations had not served any of us well. It had allowed my family to avoid growth and responsibility while keeping me locked in a pattern of seeking validation through financial support. Real love requires honesty, sometimes uncomfortable honesty. It demands that we see each other as we truly are, flaws and all, and choose to care anyway. Not because of what we can provide, but because of who we are. I will never regret the help I gave my family, but I no longer see that help as a way to purchase the acceptance I craved. Instead, I understand that healthy support empowers others to stand on their own rather than keeping them dependent. In standing up for myself that Thanksgiving Day, I gave my family the chance to see me clearly for perhaps the first time. And in doing so, I finally began to see myself clearly too. Have you ever had to confront loved ones about taking you for granted? How did you handle setting boundaries with family members? Share your experiences in the comments below. If this story resonated with you, please like and subscribe to hear more real-life lessons. Remember that your worth is never determined by what you provide to others. Thank you for listening, and until next time, value yourself as much as you value those you love.